What's up and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we're starting a brand new preparation marathon with 2004's Saw, one of my biggest guilty pleasure series of all time. Now, in general, I'm planning this to be a bi-weekly marathon, but with the lockdown still in effect, it's kind of hard to accurately plan to do anything the way that I like to. The original idea was to marathon up to the point that Spiral from the Book of Saw was released to digital, which is probably a moot point by now. But this is where it all began. Saw, Jigsaw, all of it. And like a good jigsaw puzzle, this entire series is interconnected in ways that I can only explain if I collogue with you, which I want to do so bad at this point. But not everybody's seen it, so I don't want to spoil you, so let's go ahead and get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, collogue. Talk confidently or conspiratorially. Saw takes place in an abandoned bathroom where two men are being held prisoner, shackled to opposite sides of the room and forced to discover a way to escape. To do so, they must help each other decipher who they are outside of this bathroom, how they are connected, and how to use the riddles they discover as keys to their escape, even if that means sawing through their legs to do it. So here we are at the beginning, such a strange place to be, because the first Saw movie is both like and unlike the others at the same time. This is by far the lowest budget film out of the bunch, as it feels like it was made for what, like $12? The entire thing, or at least most of it, takes place in one small bathroom, while the other films in the series act more like a labyrinth, with players moving from one game to the next, to the next, to the next. Yet the simplicity of this first film is really what wins me over, because the biggest thing about this movie is how much of a psychological thriller it actually is. I feel like they all are, but this first film is like one of the most raw psychological thrillers I've ever seen. It's demented. Again, they're all demented, but the simplicity allows this film to focus so much more on how the psychological elements affect the characters and the audience. All this movie wants to do is make you think a little bit. Think about if you were in the same situation, what would you do? Now, this series as a whole is very well known for its twists, just like with The Sixth Sense, where it's to the point that even if you haven't seen the movie, you know that the twists are in there, you're expecting them, and personally, I love each and every twist in each of these films. But this one may be the strongest, because it's one of the best twists in cinematic history, at least in my opinion, because it alters how you watch it from this point forward. To take things a little bit further, the main twist of the film isn't the only thing in the movie that comes as a shock or a surprise. There are still things in this movie that I had forgotten about, and I've seen it quite a few times. Even this early in the series, it's a complicated jigsaw puzzle, where everything is planned out methodically, stones left unturned. In a way, these movies were like the first escape rooms, as it seems to have escape room mechanics, just created by a demented serial killer. Now let's talk for a second about some negatives, because I consider this movie to be far from perfect. It finds its biggest issue in the casting and acting department with Cary Elwes, who is the worst thing about this movie by far, overacting this film to the point of spoof and parody. Leigh isn't the greatest either, but he doesn't stand out as half as bad as Cary. I don't even know how Cary was cast. Now, some of that has to do with maybe some mixture of editing, maybe some overdubbing lines, or maybe some of his dialogue, but I'd say a majority came right down to his performance, which I can't. I can't talk crap about the dialogue, though, because apart from Jigsaw's famous introductory speeches, this film has the strongest focus on talking in general, because there's a ton of just that. Talk, and that actually helps the psychological part of it dig under your skin. Thankfully, Tobin Bell as Jigsaw's voice is good enough to kind of even out some of that bad. Tobin Bell was one of the smartest casting choices in this series as a whole. His voice is unmistakable to the point of, if he shows up in anything that isn't Saw, I can't not hear Jigsaw's voice. For instance, he plays a small role in the show Alias, and I'm just sitting here like, that's Jigsaw. That's Jigsaw! That's Jigsaw! He's a perfect casting choice if ever I've seen one. Alright, so let's bring this review to a close by looking at that final score. From an unbiased vantage point, this film does quite a bit right, even with the poor acting from Cary Elwes. I believe the writing was excellent and did the greatest job at creating a foundation for one of the biggest horror franchises of all time. My unbiased score is 76%, but since I personally love this movie, my biased score is actually 84%, averaging everything out to a final score of 80%. 80 out of 100 possible stars, granting this film with a letter grade of B-. Not too shabby. I'll be interested to see how the rest of the series compares to my original viewing, because my original score for this was actually 76%, so it has gone up just a little bit. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this movie, though. I think as a whole, this is a love it or hate it series. But if you're going to love any of them, most people would probably agree that it would be this movie or maybe the second. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments down below, though. As for YouTube, you know what to do. If you like this review, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, as there's more like this coming out. Hit the thumbs up button, because that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon, because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!